أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا ومولانا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد اللهم صل على محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين ولعنة الله على أعدائهم إلى قيام يوم الدين. May Allah inshallah make this Shahr Ramadan Mubarak for you, and may Allah accept your fasting and acts of worship. Some of the advice of Shahr Ramadan is that we need to be able to separate Shahr Ramadan and be able to understand its blessings and not limit it to fasting. When a lot of times you tell the non-Muslim it's Shahr Ramadan, they say it's fasting. For example, explain to them, I'm going to not eat from this time period to the other time period. But is that all Shahr Ramadan has, even though fasting is one of the great acts of worship? الصوم لي فأنا أجزي به وأنا أجزي عليه. Fasting is for me and I will be the one that will give the reward. But can we say that Shahr Ramadan is only limited to fasting? There are many individuals, elderly folks, that do not fast. They cannot fast. So they don't have Shahr Ramadan. Or sometimes, for example, someone is a traveler. So we look and we see that actually fasting is one part of this holy month, but it is not the entire month. This month itself has blessings for all. If you are going to fast or if you will fast, it still is a special month. It is the month that we learn the Holy Quran and we recite the Holy Quran. Just like right now it's springtime, it is the springtime of the Holy Quran. For us to come back and recite and reflect and read verses of the Holy Quran and implement it and act upon it, which is the most important. Read and act upon it, inshallah. But something that is very critical is how we do iftar. When a fasting person or a faster wants to break their fast, they have to be careful of that food that they're going to eat. Is that food going to be halal or not? Alhamdulillah, Masjid is providing here halal food and halal food with halal money. But in general, when we want to ourselves purchase dates, purchase bread, purchase things, we also have to make sure and be careful that is that money that I'm going to spend for that luqma, for that meal, that morsel, is it going to be halal or not? Do I owe, for example, khums? And if I owe khums, well, part of that money that I have, that portion is for the imam of the age. Part of that is for sadat. So their haqq and huquq is mixed to my iftar. They say that one of our mujtahideen in Isfahan that was buried, he would say a story, I believe, he's one of the greats that moved from, because it was during World War I, he moved all the way to Isfahan and there he was buried. At that time he said that in Najaf there is this person that was a pickpocket. And today most of the pickpockets are online. You give your name, your address, and you see the account is empty now. They steal your identity. But a lot of times how theft happens, and it still happens in other places, is that it happens by a person coming and picking your pocket and you don't even notice. They're so smooth, they take the money, your wallet, or maybe it happened to you before. But this person was a professional and he would, for example, open up the pocket or whatever with his knife or whatever in a way nobody would find out. Very good at it, mashallah. So then Shahr Ramadan would come and this thief would actually fast in Shahr Ramadan. And people are wondering, what is he doing? Is he a pickpocket or is he going to fast? Is he a thief or is he going to fast? And then the interesting thing was this, is that when he wanted to do iftar, they say that he would not take from his own money to buy dates or to buy bread or to buy cheese or whatever you do iftar with. He would actually go to the seminary and ask the students of the seminary of Najaf and ask them, can I get some money? For example, I want to have iftar. And they'll say, you don't have money? He was known. He was a pickpocket. He's like, do you have money? He's like, look at my money. My pocket is full of money. I actually have lots of money. But it's haram money. It's people's money. I don't want to buy my bread, my iftar with this haram money. I want to buy it with halal money. So he would go, and at least he would go to the seminary and ask the poor students. They don't have much income, but he would get their money. And sometimes they say 3 hours it would take for him to find some halal money to do iftar and buy something. 3 hours. And he wouldn't break his fast. At the end, this alim said, leave this person alone. For example, he will be aghabat bikhair. He will have a good end. And he did. He did tawbah. But it shows you that even a thief, a pickpocket, knows that if he is going to do iftar, he is going to have halal money. How come sometimes in our community, we are careful of, read this dua, fast, read this verse of Quran, but when it comes to one of our wajibat, which is paying khums, and not having the huquq or the rights of the imam of the age mixed, or for example, having the mixed of the rights of the Sadat, of the family of the Prophet with that food, how come we're not careful? So in this Shahr Ramadan, I advise you, if somebody does not pay homes, to immediately pay their homes and to give, start, even if it's hard at the beginning, start it and pay for, this amount that they have in Shahr Ramadan, inshallah, and start and speak to one of the representatives of your maraja and speak to them and pay your homes to make sure that our fasting also, inshallah, has a good and halal money. Please recite Salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. We said that the best thing to do in Shahr Ramadan, because the Quran itself mentions that Shahr Ramadan is the month unzila fihi al-Quran. It is the month, it doesn't say the month of fasting from the beginning, it says the month that the Quran was descended. So one of the best discussions we can have is the Quran. And if you have a Quran available or your phones, and you promise not to text others, you can take out your phones and look and see if Surah al-Anbiya, and look and see verse number 16 to 18. This is our discussion tonight. 16 and 18. So far we finished 15 verses. This surah is about the prophets. About 15 to 16 of the prophets of God are mentioned in the surah. This surah has about the struggles, talks about the struggles that the prophets had and some of the answers that God has given them. Let's read the first verse tonight, verse 15. We see that, verse 16, I apologize, verse 16. وَمَا خَلَقْ أَعُوذُ بِاللَّهِ مِنَ الشَّيْطَانِ الرَّجِيمِ بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وَمَا خَلَقْنَا السَّمَاءِ وَالْأَرْضِ وَمَا بَيْنَهُمَا لَاعِبِينَ. Then Allah answers and says to those that are detesting and denying Rasulullah, and to us, for us to learn, we did not create the heaven and the earth and that between them in play. La'ibin means you're playing. Instead of focusing on something that is important, you are playing. There's no point. It's useless. So this verse, we can say, is talking about the fact that there is purpose for creation. We did not create it for play so that people can come here for a short amount of time. And it's fun to watch them, for example. They live and die and that's it. It's over. Because Allah is wise. And Allah plans. And if He is going to create, there's going to be a purpose for that creation. لو أردنا أن نتخذ لهوا لاتخذناه من لدنا إن كنا فاعلين. Had we intended to take a diversion and we wanted to have lahu, and for example something that is going to be pointless or useless, we could have taken it from what is with us if indeed we were to do so. If we wanted to do so And if we want to create this universe without purpose, we could have did it in another way, for example. In another funner way, a different, wasteless way, if we wanted to. But creation has a purpose. And this is it seems very simple, I'm telling you this. But I want you to go out right now in the streets and ask people today, and ask them, why are we created, for example? What is the purpose of life? And they think that it is the most complex question ever. They think it is the most philosophical question, yet as Muslims and readers of Quran, for us it is the most simple of questions, and we'll answer it inshallah. That we have been created for a purpose. We are here, there's a reason. Imagine you were without religion. Imagine you were without guidance. And you had to figure out for yourself, why am I here? Because these are one of the fundamental questions that anyone should ask. Where did I come from? What am I doing here? Where shall I go? 3 important questions. But nobody thinks about these things. They think about everything else, but not these 3 things. It is as simple as this. Imagine, God forbid, a person gets into an accident. He's in the hospital. He's in the hospital, he wakes up and says, where am I right now? Isn't that the first question they would ask if they're in the hospital? Where am I right now? Said, you're in the hospital. So how did I get here? Where did I come from? He said that you were making too much dua, for example, when you're driving, and you over du'a'd and you were driving and you got in an accident, for example. You tried to do sujood and ruku while you're driving and you got into an accident. You should pay attention when you're driving. So when do I get out of here? It says you're actually getting out because you're a mu'min, you're a believer, you did your paperwork, you're coming out right now. These are 3 fundamental questions that every day, when it comes to your normal life, you ask. But how come when it comes to ourselves and to answer, what am I doing here? What is this 10, 15, 20, 50, 100 years of life? What is it for? Where did I come from? Who gave me life? Where shall I go? So you see, these are the initial questions that anyone that has aql and intellect, but the problem is, people do not want to allow the intellect to govern their lives. They don't want to be a rational human being. And the difference with us and animals is our intellect, that we are mutaharrik, bi-irada, we move by our will, and our will is commanded by our intellect. Our intellect tells us what to do, what is qabih, don't do that, what is good, do that. Every day we make how many conscious decisions every day? So therefore we should be governed by the intellect. But the problem with modern man is he's governed by what? The desire. The desire. There's no more intellect for him, no more thinking, no more pondering. That's why the traditions say 1 hour or 1 moment. Sa'a maybe it can mean 1 moment even. It doesn't have to be 60 minutes. Sa'a, 1 moment or 1 hour of reflection is better than 1 year of worship. Because you think and think and think and ponder, say, that is why I'm created. That is why I've been here. So much important is this goal that we have in our life that sometimes Imam Ali alayhi salam would be asked in the middle of the battle of Jamal. Harsh battle, difficult battle. And Arabi in hadith mentions to him, asks him, is God one? And the people attack him and said, he's the general, he's the commander. You're asking him philosophical, theological questions and people are being killed right now. He needs to be able to command people. And then he says, leave him alone. Imam Ali alayhi salam mentions that this is what we want from the qawm. This is what we want from the people. And he begins to answer about Tawheed and the oneness of God in the middle of the battle. Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam, our awliya, our Anbiya, our prophets, every day they would think of the purpose of creation. And every moment they would do something, it would be for that purpose. But modern man, if you ask people, what are you doing this for? They don't have an answer. Why are you here? Why are you going there? They just say, I just have to, I just want to, there's no purpose. There's no rationality anymore. But we see in the battle of Jamal, the battle of the camel, Ali alayhi salam, who this month is also the month of Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam, that we should remember Ali, because the Prophet, when he gave khutbah of Sha'baniyah, he began to cry because he also said, in this month, Ali alayhi salam, your beard will become bloodied. Your beard will become red in this month, basically. So Rasulullah, just mentioning Shahr Ramadan, began to cry for Amir al-Mu'mineen. And then he asked this question and shocks everyone. Ali alayhi salam, the way that he lived, he shocked everyone. Do you know what his question was after Rasulullah mentioned that in the future, basically, you will be killed, you will be murdered? What do we think? Usually we would say, who's going to do it? How can I stop it? Let me get him now, for example, before it's too late. You know, and then Imam Ali just asked, will my deen be intact? Will my faith and religion be intact then? Will I have salamatul deen? That's Imam Ali. Why? Because he's living with purpose. Every day he's living, he's thinking of, why am I created? To serve. And we mentioned the purpose of creation in the verses of the Quran, to serve Allah. So therefore I want to know, how will I be? I'm worried because nobody, brothers and sisters, Imam Ali asked this question about his deen. Are you not worried about your future? You don't know that if you will die, we will leave this world with iman, or God forbid, with disbelief. We don't know if we will have husna aqaba, a good end to our lives, or we'll have su'a aqaba, a bad end. These are things to get when you're making dua for yourselves and you're doing iftar. Ask this from yourself. Get it from yourself. Get it for your children, from your progeny. Du'as of grandparents will be mustajab for their grandchildren. Get it. Do dua all the way for all of your generations. So let's look at some of the verses that talk about this. Then Allah says, very interesting, verse 18, بَلْ نَغْذِفُ بِالْحَقِّ عَلَى الْبَاطِلِ. Rather, we dash the truth upon falsehood. نَغْذِفُ means to throw, for example, to throw something. So we throw or we dash بِالْحَقِّ عَلَى الْبَاطِلِ. We throw the truth at the falsehood. And that's the best way. If you want to get rid of falsehood, throw the truth at it. Therefore, Allah mentions that the purpose of creation, there is purpose. We throw the truth to what is batil, what is falsehood. فَيَدْمَغُهُ فَإِذَا هُوَ ظَاهِرٌ. And this verb يَدْمَغُهُ comes from breaking the skull. Breaking the skull, that is the root of yadgham. We break the skull, we will shatter, or it says we will destroy it, and thereupon it departs and batil is gone. This is the description that God will throw the truth at falsehood, and falsehood will be shattered. The skull, which is, the skull is the main area of our existence, our body. And if you hit someone in the head, they call it a headshot, for example, the person is destroyed, for example, is dead. وَلَكُمُ الْوَيْلِ مِمَّا تَصِفُونَ. And for you is destruction from what which you describe. So we need to look at the purpose of creation today, a theological and philosophical. I don't want to take too much of your time because we have a very, very short and accurate, time period that we're going to be ending hopefully at 9:45 today, inshallah. So in these next about 10-15 minutes, we need to first look at one principle. And that is that, why does God create? Why does God create? The problem that we have, and the Mufassirin say, in the commentaries of the Quran say, God, when you're trying to say the purpose of creation, you're trying to always bring God to you. Because you are used to everything being, for example, human or created. Therefore, when you say God creates, He must have a need. He must need something, right? That's why someone does something. When you do something, usually it's for a need. Actually, Allama Tabatabai, when it comes to the history of language, he says language was created, this is his view. Language was created out of need. For example, I needed something, that rock, for example, I couldn't get it. So like, rock, give me that rock. And I needed it, so I had to be able to say it. For example, the other guy wants to tell you, here you go. For example, here you go. For example, there's need in a way for us to be able to talk and communicate to one another, because we have needs. We have something that we need, a rock, we need a tool, we need a fire, something, whatever. We need to label words, label these subjects and give them a definition. So he says the history of words or vocabulary came from this need. So when you do something, usually it's for need. If I go to work, there's need. For example, when whatever, if you look at your entire life, of when you want to eat something, you want to cook something, you want to rest, everything is based on need. So when you usually ask, then why did God create us? You think, well, maybe God has a need. Well, there is no need. God has no need. So you have to first of all put that separate and say, God does not have any need. Then why does he create? And then you come into the purpose of creation. We understand, and then if it is not for God, then who is it for? If the purpose of creation is not for him because he doesn't have any need, then who is it for? Man, for you. We created for you. We give creation for you. That's why. So very easily from logic you understand God does not have any need. Purpose of creation is not for him. It is for you. And why would he create you? Why would he give you this test? So that you can come into perfection. And you can look at the verses of the Quran. For example, how beautifully Allah will mention, for example, that God, الَّذِي خَلَقَ الْمَوْتَ وَالْحَيَاةَ لِيَبْلُوَكُمْ أَيُّكُمْ أَحْسَنُ عَمَلًا. He created life and death, or death and life, to test you, to see which one of you has the best of action. Interesting here when you look at this verse in Surah al-Mulk, I believe, it doesn't say, I created you so you can fail or pass. You can go to heaven or hell. It doesn't say that. It says, I have created life and death to see which one of you has the best action. Which one of you will be the sabiqun, the foremost of the foremost. Which one of you will sacrifice the most for Allah. Not just fail or pass, go to heaven or hell. That's the wrong way to look at life and the purpose of creation. God created you just to go to heaven or hell. No. Did you, for example, when you look at your own kids, do you have kids and say, okay, I have kids, I just want them to pass. I just don't want them to be a drug addict. I just don't want them to be a gang member. I just don't want them to be a weirdo, for example. Whatever, people are talking about today, I just don't want them to be like this. You don't have that idea of your kid. You say, I want to have the best for my kid. When I have a kid, I want him to be the best when it comes to worship, the best when it comes to religion, the best when it comes to school, the best when it comes to exercise, the best, sports, the best, right? You don't say, I just don't want him to pass and just be good. So how come when you have such an expectation for your own kids, God would not have this expectation from us and say, I have created death and life so you can become the very, very best. Is this only for the prophets and imams? No, it's for you. When you look at, and I'm speaking to you, myself, each person, that God created each one of you so you can be the best. You can show God how much you will sacrifice, how much you will give in order to attain him. I will give everything else in this world up. Everything, even how hard it is, how difficult it is, all the attachments, all of aghyar, everyone else. But I will choose Allah. I will choose you every time. And I've did this for 40 years, 70 years. I showed that every time it became Allah and others, I always chose Allah. And I did it not only, there's different ways to do it, but I did it the best. I was the first to do it. Who wants to volunteer to help in the masjid? Me. Not, okay, brother, will you now? Okay, fine, I'll do it. Okay, fine. No, you were by yourself a volunteer. You're always the first, for example, when it came to helping, supporting. So therefore we see that the purpose of creation is not only to pass or fail, it's higher than that. And that is to show God how much you love him and how much you're willing to sacrifice for him. When you look at the purpose of creation, we're about 5 minutes left. We have other narrations that God has created the jinn, or ayahs, jinn and ins, illa liya'budun, for worship. Right? Quran also mentions worship, or ahsanu amala. Same thing. God created you, and if you just want to take one line out of tonight's speech, God created you for you to become guided. God created you for you to become perfect. God brought us in this world to give us kamal and perfection, so that when we leave this world, we're different than when we came in this world. that after 70, 80 years you become a much different individual. You become a worshiper of God, a person that has sacrificed, went through hardship and challenges of life. Sometimes your money, well, you're tested with money. Sometimes you're tested with children. Sometimes you're tested with life. But yet all of this, you say Allah, Allah, Allah. And at the end, when you leave this world, you have so much nur and light that you maybe at the beginning you didn't have. So you're saying that if I understand the purpose of creation, we're running out of time because I want to say something else. I also understand why God does things this way. Now I start understanding God. I say, oh God, maybe that job that I didn't, I kept making dua, I got hired here at this company or this business I started. Maybe there was a reason you didn't want it to happen. Because your ultimate goal for me is to bring me close to you. And maybe that job was not going to make me close to you. But yet, if you do not have this goal, then you're just looking, God, give me more money. God, feed my, fill my belly up more. Give me whatever I want, material, like the materialist. But if I understand that God created me to be the best, then everything that is going to happen in my life is in a purpose to take me to kamal, to perfection. And that's good for me. Whatever is khair for me. That's why some of our greats wouldn't say, inshallah khair, when something would happen. They would say, no, it is khair. It is good. It is good. Not inshallah it's khair. It is good for you. But I just don't understand. It's like medicine. Sometimes that medicine tastes bad, but it's good for you. So unless you understand hidayat and in being guided into kamal and perfection, you will always, maybe, God forbid, look at God in a different way as if He didn't give you enough. You asked Him, you made du'as and it was never answered. But that person that every day, that like Imam Ali alayhi salam, that in the battle of Jamal, he know what he was fighting for was for God. Then everything that happens, he's going to see that God wants me to bring me close to Him. And the worst bala is if God separates me from Him. Sayyidah Fatima to Zahra, and mention her. As you know, we also are preparing for the night of Qadr. In Shahr Ramadan, you should be preparing every night for the night of destiny, because it's a very important night. All the hakim and important affairs will be determined. Our files will be taken to the Imam of the age. And in the narration it says, whoever understands Fatimatu Zahra salawatullah alayha, understands the night of Qadr. Well, let me tell you something about how she understood creation. It is Saqifa happens. They take away 100 days after Amir al-Mu'mineen in front of everyone is the Mawla of the believers. Bakhin, congratulations Amir al-Mu'mineen. Now they have a little secret group meeting and they determine that the Khalifa should be someone besides Ali alayhi salam, and they're committing treason against what? Rasulullah wanted, what He'd commanded, because He wanted this and said this clearly. Now Sayyidah Fatima needs to stand up against them and wants to be the shield and sword of Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam. And she uses fadak. Sometimes she uses fadak and says, look, they're stealing fadak from me. They're usurpers, for example. One way to bring them down. And with all this going on, she comes to the masjid and gives a speech. And with all the oppression that she's facing, and all the people of Medina that are leaving her alone, being the only progeny, the only child of Rasulullah alive. And there she says, we have 3 minutes. There beautifully in the beginning of her sermon, khutbah, she begins to talk about the purpose of creation. Because everything that a person, believer, does is for that purpose. It mentions here, ابتدأ الأشياء لا من شيء كان قبلها وأنشأها باهتداء أمثلة امتثلها وكونها بقدرته وذرأها بمشيته من غير حاجة منه إلى تكوينها ولا فائدة له في تصويرها. He originated everything not from examples, Before them, He created them without examples. Rather, He created them with His might and dispersed them according to His will. Not for a need He created them, because God does not have a need, nor for a benefit for Him. And then says the purpose of creation during this jihad that she had, mentions illa, God created for these reasons, illa tathbitan lihikmateh, to establish His wisdom. God gave creation, existence for His wisdom. وَتَنْبِيهًا عَلَى طَاعَتِهِ, and bring attention to His obedience so that God can be obeyed. وَإِظْهَارًا لِقُدْرَتِهِ, to manifest His might. وَتَعَبُّدًا لِبَرِيَّتِهِ, and lead His creatures to humbly venerate and worship Him. For ta'ah, for worship, God has created us to show His wisdom, to show His might, so that we can submit to the will of God. This is the purpose of creation. When in a critical time, in the beginning of the usurping the Khalafat of Amir al-Mu'mineen, because we said that believer always reminds themselves of the purpose of creation throughout the day. And why am I being created? Where am I going to go to? Where did I come from? And when you know this, then you can make all your individual intentions follow. So I'm going to do this tomorrow because God created me to worship Him. I'm going to go to work tomorrow for this. I'm going to study for this. Everything you do starts having, sabqat Allah, the color of Allah in it. And now your life slowly and slowly becomes a muwahhid and monotheist life, because all your harakat and sakanat, your actions and inactions, are for God. May Allah inshallah make us of the true muwahhideen. May Allah make us truly of those that understand why we have been created, and inshallah we can serve Him appropriately in this world. May Allah forgive our family members that have passed away, all of those that helped found this masjid. Allah bless their souls. Allah help the oppressed in Gaza and throughout the world, inshallah. The starvation that is happening, help remove it, inshallah, from this world. May Allah expedite the return of the Imam of the age, help all those that are sick and all those that are troubled with the faraj of the Imam of the age, with a salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.